action. Hi, everyone. I'm Andrea Joyce, along with Peter Vidmar, double gold medalist from 1984. Peter, a lot of big competitions in the months ahead, culminating with the Olympics in 1996 in Atlanta. How does this event factor in?
Well, Andrea, this is important because in the next 3 months we have the USA Championships in August. We have in September the World Team Trials. Then in October the World Gymnastics Championships in Sabai, Japan. So this is a great event for many of the top gymnasts to really get in tune for what could be some of the most important competitions of their careers.
So who should we be looking for here?
Well, we have some Olympic hopefuls here. Rob Kiefer won parallel bars at this event last year. He's a very good, consistent all-around performer. Jay Thornton, another good all-around gymnast, won the NCAA Florex title recently. And then Richard Grace is probably the favorite from Nebraska. He was the NCAA all-around champion. He should be the favorite because Cheney Humphrey, who would have been the favorite, had to pull out due to some migraines which caused some vertigo, and vertigo's bad in gymnastics, so he's just going to do some exhibitions. But all 4 of these gymnasts are on separate teams, which could lead to a very balanced team competition and an exciting one as well.
And here are the rules for the men. There are 6 gymnasts on each of the 4 teams. The top 5 scores count, and the athletes are assigned to teams to create competitive balance, so it may not necessarily reflect hometown geography. And the men compete in 6 events. Peter, if you're competing, where do you want to start?
Well, when you're starting off, you're nervous, you have a lot of power, so an event like rings would be very good to start. Pommel horse is probably the one you don't want to start on just because it's such a delicate event.
And we are ready to get underway with the first rotation. Here's Jay Thornton on the vault representing the North team.
And Jay's very powerful on vault. It's an interesting one, a new vault. Round off out on the board, Yurchenko vault off with a full twist. Very, very difficult, and especially from the men's standpoint.
They call him Hoss because he's big for a gymnast.
He is big, and I'll tell you, this vault is interesting because the girls do this vault a lot, but when you take the horse lengthwise, the margin of error for hand placement's very, very narrow, and you can see his left hand almost slipped off the horse.
Jay Thornton scores a 9-2 in the first rotation.
Now, vault's a typically low-scoring event, so that shouldn't be a big surprise.
And we join John McCready already on the floor. We should remind you that there are 4 events going on simultaneously. Peter, what are the judges looking for here?
Well, they're looking for superior tumbling passes. Lately, a lot of gymnasts are doing very difficult front tumbling passes, but usually finishing with a back tumbling pass, kind of like what John's doing right there. Round up back, double back. Very nice landing.
Now, he says that he may train full-time at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs. Between now and the Olympics, does he have a shot at making the team?
Well, he has a good chance, but he's going to have to jump to the next level with some of the big guys. And a score like a 9.75 is certainly not going to hurt. That was a great score.
Off to a great start for John McCready. Over to the pommel horse now, the NCAA all-around champion, Richard Grace.
Richard is a very powerful gymnast. He's not a tall gymnast. Usually the taller gymnast looks better on pommel horse, but he's got this thing packed full of difficulty. Walks across the horse backwards, alternating between the pommels, into the center, moving backwards again. There's a nice flare sequence working across the horse without the pommels.
Well, he admits that this is his toughest event, but he did win the silver on the pommel horse at the 1993 Olympic Festival.
He had a great meet there. He won the all-around there as well. Here's a flare to a handstand. Off to a great shot. I said pommel horse was tough to start on, but Richard Grace was very, very tough there.
And while Grace waits for his score, Cheney Humphrey is getting ready for his still rings routine. Once again, he's just doing a few exhibitions here, not really competing. Richard Grace, a 9.75 for the East.
Now, Cheney has had a very, very up and down year I guess about the last 2 years, and has had some injuries, had to come back, and now he had some migraines that kind of prevented him from really being at his best, so he's just doing some exhibitions. If he's going to pick an event to perform on, it might as well be the rings. He's extremely powerful. The crowd's just going to love a routine like this. Maltese cross.
Cheney turns 25 next week. I guess you'd kind of call him the elder statesman of the festival.
Yeah, he really is, but what's important is he wanted to get his feet wet here because he hasn't competed a lot this year. Got the USA Championships coming up very soon, and he wants to get ready to make that World Championship team, which competes in Japan in October.
The last gymnast cut from the 1992 Olympic team. Would love to make it in 96.
That's for sure. That was a nice routine. He's very powerful. One of the strongest gymnasts in the world on rings. That's a beautiful Maltese cross. Right back up to another one. Cheney was one of the most popular gymnasts at the World Championships in Australia last year. And a 9.65 is a good score, but once again, it will not count because he's only doing an exhibition today.
So at the end of the first rotation, some strong performances from Richard Grace and Colorado's own John McRady. They share the lead, and the South team leads the team competition.
The CBS Sports Show.
Inside your back door, Richard Grace and John McRady in the lead. Dave Frank, representing the West, is in third. Here's Rob Kiefer. Not a great start on the floor. He moves to the pommel horse now. Kiefer in 6th place after the first rotation.
There's a very difficult start. We have skills of difficulty. They go from A through E level skill. He's starting off with some E's, moving back across the horse, up to a handstand, back into his single leg work. It's required skill to do some scissors. So far, he's off to a great start on pommel horse. Flare work. This should score well.
Rob attends the University of New Mexico. His twin brother Ricky competes, however, for Nebraska.
And Rob had a few little form breaks at the beginning of the routine, a little bit tight here and there, but he had a lot of difficulty, so I'm curious to see what score the judges are going to give him.
Ooh, a 9.8 for Rob Kiefer.
That's a little high, but, you know, he had a lot of difficulty, and they're giving out the scores today.
All right, here's Brian Yee over on the parallel bars, competing for the North team. Brian has finished his eligibility at the University of Minnesota.
And Brian trains with John Roethlisberger, who's the top gymnast in the country right now, under the tutelage of his coach, Fred. A little mistake there. That's going to cost him a couple tenths. Now, Fred Roethlisberger, the coach at Minnesota, is, of course, John's father and was an Olympian himself in 1968. He's trained there for a number of years. Had some problems with some wrist surgery, but doing quite well. Good dismount on parallel bars. That little bobble at the beginning, though, is going to cost him a few tenths.
Brian Yee got into the sport because of allergies. Had to pick an indoor sport.
On that peach basket right there, his hands didn't get quite up to the tops of the bars, hit his elbows, but he recovered well enough to not get a major deduction.
And a 9.5 for Brian Yee. There's Cheney Humphrey over at the trainer's table. He's got some ice on his arm. He was scheduled to vault in this rotation, but he's leaving the floor. Over on the pommel horse now, one of the early leaders, John McRady, in action.
And this is not his favorite event, but so far he's doing quite well. He needs to get a good score here to stay in the hunt in the all-around, though. And there's some flare work off the pommels. Oh, now he's off the horse. Oh, that's it for the all-around there. Big mistake. He loses 5/10 of a point, had a little bobble beforehand, so.
And here's Richard Grace on the still rings. Richard is engaged to be married in December to, get a load of this, the president of the Men's Gymnastics Fan Club in Nebraska.
And she must be some fan of Richard's then. I'll tell you, if there's one weakness for Richard on rings, he needs to beef up some of his strength sequences, but he's got some great swing, good power, little bobble on that handstand. Here's a nice double back, holding onto the straps, crosses the straps to a Yamawaki. Those are those double fronts there. Turns himself back around into a straddle L. Nice swing sequences. He just needs to get some nice, powerful strength moves. Little bobble there on the press. Here's a good dismount, double. It's a double twisting double back. Step 4. It's a very hard dismount, though. Here's where he crosses the strap. This is kind of a new trend in rings. It's very difficult to be creative on an event like rings. All of a sudden, guys are crossing the straps, turning back around, and it adds some life to an event that really hasn't changed much over the years.
Gets congratulations from his teammates on that routine. Meantime, John McRady not happy with his 9.15 on the pommel horse. And Grace scores just a 9.2. So our leaders falter. Rob Kiefer moves up to first place. And as it turns out, Cheney Humphrey did injure his bicep in the first rotation. We caught up with him and asked him about it.
I think we caught it, basically early enough so that it won't be a problem, because the main emphasis also for being in this meet was to get myself ready for the USA Championships and for the World Championships coming up. So I was able to compete the ring routine, which was also a new routine for me. So, I did get a little bit accomplished here. Not everything that I wanted to do was done, but I do feel pretty good with what happened today. Even though, my bicep is a little tender, I think I should be okay.
Tough luck for a guy with more than his share of recent setbacks.
And we will be back with more from beautiful Boulder in a moment. Tim Daggett, gold medal Olympian turned coach with his pupil Mike Moran, and Tim's got a similar approach to coaching as he had to competing.
My goal is that every turn that they take, I am in the game 100%, every single turn, whether that means I'm lifting them up to the high bar, whether that means I'm cracking their back, whether that means I'm getting ready to spot on floor. I am as into the game as I can possibly be. And if I show that kind of discipline, I think that it comes back to the athlete a little bit, and we start to feel a little bit of mutual trust and respect there.
And here's Mike Moran on the high bar. Would you have wanted Tim Daggett as a coach?
I don't know. I had him as a roommate, and he's one of the most intense competitors I've ever met. But he's always wanted to be a coach, always. He's never thought of doing anything else. He's done a great job with his kids in a very short period of time. Mike Moran's very good on the high bar. There's 2 reverse hacks, right into some giant swings.
Now, he's taking a year off before attending college to train full-time. Is that a bit of a risky move for a young gymnast?
Well, I think it just shows the faith that his kids have in him as a coach. And so Mike Moran, and Jeff LaValle, another gymnast that's here at the festival, have both decided to do that. And that is a big sacrifice. But hopefully they'll see the fruits of their labors as they try to make that Olympic team. Not a bad routine. Not going to score super high. Had a couple little form breaks. But a good routine nonetheless for Mike Moran. Here's a release move over the bar. He does a full twist over the bar, lets go of the bar, catches it with one arm, stays in the one-arm giant swing, and does a flyaway half turn. Those little form breaks are going to cost him a bit, but a lot of nice difficulty in that routine.
Moran scores a 9.45, gets a couple of attaboys from his coach, Tim Daggett. Over to the vault now. Here's Richard Grace.
Powerful and a quick vaulter. Usually does a Sukahara with a full twist or more. That's a 1.5 twist. Not a bad landing, a little crooked, but that should score well. And vault, once again, it's a very low-scoring event for the most part in the all-around. And so if he can get a good score here, that can really move him ahead of the guys. A little crooked on that left ankle. Got to be a lot of force on that landing.
Richard Grace, yeah, looks like he's limping a little bit. A 9.65 for Grace. And here's our leader, Rob Kiefer of the South team. He's moved over to the still rings.
And he's going to have to do a very good performance to stay ahead of Richard Grace here. Iron cross pull out. A little bit of a swing going. There's his press to a handstand. There's an inverted cross. Could be a little bit lower, but it's a very, very difficult strength move. Back up rise to handstand.
Kiefer won the bronze in this event at last year's festival.
He's just all back into the rings. Little bobble trying to get back out of that handstand. Bailing out for his dismount. I don't think that's going to be good enough to stay ahead of Richard Grace on that. Little too weak at the end.
And that'll open the door for Brian Yee, currently in second place. Kiefer, yeah, scores just a 9.35 on the still rings. Here's Brian Yee at the high bar. Yee says this is his weakest event. He says, I don't have big skills here.
Yeah, you got to have some big stuff on high bar to get the good scores. He's a clean gymnast. Those are nice Stalder sequences. But the most important part of high bar, from the crowd standpoint, even for the judges, is do the big release moves. Getting ready for one. That's called a Tkachev or a reverse hecht. Let's see if he does any more, though. Another Stalder. So far, it's just not packed full of a lot of difficulty. Another Stalder. And it looks like he's getting ready for a dismount. So only one release move, and that could definitely cost him in the score.
So the leaders have faltered here in the third rotation. And that'll put Richard Grace in good position. And that routine did cost Brian Yee. He scores just a 9.1. And in fact, Richard Grace does take the lead Rob Kiefer falls to second. Meantime, the North team leads the team competition. And we'll have more of the men's action later as the U.S. Olympic Festival continues on the CBS Sports Show. To Boulder, Colorado, where the buffalo do indeed roam. We're here for the men's gymnastics competition, and as we get ready for the 5th rotation, here are the all-around standings. Richard Grace still in the lead, but Mike Moran and Jay Thornton have managed to move up into the top 3, Peter.
And mostly because of floor routines here. Mike Moran does some very good front tumbling throughout his routine, gets some good scores, and that'll move him back in the hunt for the all-around. And Jay Thornton, the NCAA Florex champion, finishes his routine with a very nice layout double twist, punch front, for a very high-scoring 9.85, the highest of the meet so far.
And we move on now to the 5th rotation, and here's a look at the future. 16-year-old Freddie Umali. What about this young man, Peter?
Well, he won his division at the Junior Nationals this year. He's only 16 years old, does some really nice skills, and I'm very impressed with his horizontal bar. A lot of power, doesn't seem to hold back much at all.
He's got his sights on the year 2000, the Olympics in Sydney, Australia.
And he has some very exciting release moves. There's a reverse hack, another reverse hack, into a giant swing. It's nice to see someone at this age not holding back and just going all out. This is the kind of gymnastics that we need to have in the future. Very, very aggressive. There's this hot pirouette out of his invert giants, getting ready for a dismount. And a double layout.
Great landing.
Score well. Only 16 years old. A lot of promise.
Umali says he feels like he needs to get stronger physically, but there didn't seem to be much wrong with that routine.
Well, the strength comes with age as well. He's got some very nice release moves. That shows some very good technique on high bar. Needs to polish up some of the form a little bit here and there, but I like his gymnastics.
Umali with a very respectable 9.55. Here's Mike Moran on the pommel horse.
And oh, he's in a little bit of trouble there. That little break in form is going to cost him a few tenths of a point. Just not quite real fluid right now. Moving back, legs came apart again. Every time those legs come apart, the judges are going to look to deduct. And he can't afford a low score if he wants to stay up there in the all-around.
Currently in 2nd place.
This is just one of those events where if you're off, sometimes you just stay off. He just didn't quite get back on track on this routine.
Mike Moran looking a little disappointed with that routine. Over to the parallel bars now, and Rob Kiefer.
Now, Rob won parallel bars last year at the Olympic Festival. There's his giant front uprise. Those are called Healy twirls. Very difficult turns on one arm. Wow, right into a very nice 1 3/4 front flip. You can see how the bars bend when he goes through the skills. Those bars are not made of wood. They're actually fiberglass with a wood laminate. Gives him a lot of bounce. There's his dismount, double pike. Should score fairly well.
And there's Tim Daggett consoling Mike Moran. He scores just a 9.2.
And he's out for the all-around realistically here, but we'll see more of him in the future.
A 9.65 meantime for Rob Kiefer. Over to the pommel horse now, Jay Thornton.
And he's halfway through his routine now, getting ready for the last part. He does flares across the horse without touching the pommels. And, whoa, he's in big trouble, but he's really powering that out. He almost fell off. Up to a handstand. Wow, he muscled through the end of that routine. And you can see by the smile on his face, he's glad that's over.
It's a smile that kind of looks like somebody who got away with something almost.
Well, that was a great fight. It really was.
All right, here's our leader, Richard Grace, moving to the high bar. He's got an unusual nickname and the tattoo of the Keebler elf to go along with it, Peter.
Well, a Nebraska football player just called him the Key because he's not exactly a big, tall guy, and he took that to heart and put the Keebler elf doing an iron cross on his ankle.
Jay Thornton, meantime, scored a 9.55 for that pommel horse routine.
And now Richard Grace on the high bar has decided to really beef up this routine. He talked earlier before the competition to me about trying to do harder skills. It's showing on high bar. Very dynamic reverse hack Another reverse hack, right to a flyaway half. That's 3 release moves right in a row. Sitting up to the dorsal grip requirement. Those are inverted giants. Nice straight ones. Hop pirouette. Get ready for a dismount. Very aggressive tap into a double layout, double twist. Little stumble on the end. That's a very difficult dismount. He's very happy with that. He went for some big skills. They came through for him, and he's hoping for a good score now.
And here's Brian Yee over on the pommel horse, trying to move up from 5th place.
And doing a great job so far. Very extended on his circles, moving up and back on the horse, with and without the pommels. Just a little ball before that scissor break, but this is a very, very extended, big-looking routine. It's a very important part of pommel horse to look very big. He's going to score well on that for sure.
Doesn't like this event as much as he used to because of that wrist surgery he had a couple of months ago. Says it's a little bit stressful for his left wrist.
Without question, pommel horse is the most painful on the wrist. But look at how extended he is, moving up and down across the horse. His body is very, very straight. And it's so difficult to clear the horse in both the front and the back of the swing when he's swinging lengthwise. He does a good job at it.
Oh, and a terrific score for Brian Yee, a 9.85, and that'll help him in the all-around standings. Richard Grace gets a 9.5 for his high bar routine, and that's good enough for him to hang on to the lead. Brian Yee, meantime, has moved up to 2nd. Right behind him is a surging Rob Kiefer. Back in Boulder as we get ready for the final rotation, Richard Grace has a comfortable lead over Brian Yee. And here's Jay Thornton tied for 3rd. He will finish up on the still rings, and we should point out that it has been brutally hot in Boulder this weekend. Temperatures topping 100 degrees, and Peter, this gym is not air conditioned.
No, and an event like rings to finish on takes a lot of power, and these guys, they're fatigued. They get drained a lot faster when they're really hot like this. Jay's a very strong gymnast. There's a nice iron cross sequence into a Maltese cross. Little bend of the arms there. This is pressed to a handstand. Nice and steady, though. There's his inverted cross. It's important to stay as steady as possible on rings. Not move. Doing a good job. Getting ready for his dismount. Half in, half out. That's a solid routine.
Good enough to win him a medal?
It could. I mean, he had no major deductions, and we have to see what the other guys do.
Here's Rob Kiefer, tied for 3rd with Thornton.
It's a pretty good event here for Rob. Nice Stalder sequence. Getting ready for his release move. It's a reverse hecht right into a flyaway half-turn catch. Nicely done. So far, no mistakes. Got his release moves out of the way. There's his inverted giants, fulfilling a requirement. Get ready for a dismount. Very aggressive giant swing. Well, kind of floats that half in, half out. Big stumble forward. Pretty good routine, though. That's going to keep him up there.
Rob Kiefer competing in his 4th Olympic festival, and there's Jay Thornton's score, a 9.4.
Here's that release move. He does a nice high reverse hecht. It's also called a Tkachev, named after the Soviet gymnast that did it first. There's a flyaway half turn, also called a Ganger, named after the German gymnast that did it first.
And Rob Kiefer scores a 9.55. That will be good enough for a medal. We just don't know which color. Here's Brian Yee over on the still rings. Is this a tough event, Peter, to pick up ground on? He's currently in 2nd place.
Well, he needs to be a very powerful ringman. He's got some good swing skills, but strength is also very important on rings. There's his Maltese. And you also have to realize that Richard Grace is on a very good event for him on floor exercise. And so we'll have to see what Richard does on floor.
We talked a little bit about the heat. They're also contending with the altitude here.
And that causes for a lot of fatigue at the end of each of the performances for these guys. They're really tired at the end of their routines. And the heat complicates it even that much more.
And here's the leader, Richard Grace. Appropriately enough, he will conclude this competition on his favorite event, the floor. Brian Yee scores a 9.4, so that'll likely earn him the bronze medal. And that means that Rob Kiefer has at least a silver. Now, Grace only needs to score better than a 9.2 to win the all-around outright.
And he should have no trouble here because floor is such a good event for Richard. Now this is where altitude is very critical on floor exercise. The first 1 or 2 tumbling passes, they feel great because the air is so thin, they go right through the air. There's a great double twisting double back flip. The problem is towards the second half of the routine, then the fatigue sets in because there just isn't as much oxygen in the lungs. Here's a press to a handstand. Whoa! Not good. Should have stayed up there in the handstand. That'll be a deduction. Getting ready for his third pass. Catch some wind. Double front. Oh, right down to his seat. Another big deduction. Now the all-around could be in jeopardy here.
Richard Grace has held the lead through much of the competition.
I'd say that his standing for the gold medal is definitely in jeopardy now. Last tumbling pass, round off, back handspring, full twisting double back, very difficult last pass, little step. Now it's just up to the judges. It's going to be close.
Ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude the men's artistic gymnastics competition.
Here's that double front. Just doesn't quite get around. Hits his heels, slides right down to his seat.
So Richard Grace falters in the final rotation, just misses with a score of 9.2, and that means he will share the gold with Rob Kiefer. So Grace and Kiefer tie for first. Yee wins the bronze. Julianne McNamara is standing by with the gold medalists.
Richard, you won this event 2 years ago. Again, the gold medal. How does it feel?
It's a great feeling. I look at this meet as a stepping stone to the Olympic trials and the Olympic Games.
Well, you tried some new skills. Some things went really well. You just had a little problem on the floor exercise. What happened there?
The atmosphere here, it was hard to breathe. I was really tired. I went for it all, and I didn't come through.
Rob, you pulled it through at the very end. Just goes to show you just may end up on top. What are your plans now? This is a big year. Championships coming up, the Olympic Games. What's your plan?
Yeah, my plan is to hit 6 for 6 routines here, and that's the key, consistency. I'm looking to place in the top 7 at USA Championships, which leads towards the Olympics.
Congratulations to both of you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julianne. And in the team competition, the North, led by Brian Yee, Mike Moran, and Jay Thornton, take the gold. So for Peter Vidmar, Julianne McNamara, Scott Hamilton, and Tracy Wilson, I'm Andrea Joyce saying so long from the U.S. Olympic Festival.
Tomorrow, our coverage of the festival continues. You'll see figure skating, the ladies program, and the pairs competition, women's team gymnastics, and gold medal boxing. Coming up next, Monica Seles.